it will be more in way of presentation, and you'll ask questions as Marcy outlined. Now, today we're looking at pictures, at paintings. And as the title said, that the picture or painting is worth 1,000 words. And when I selected the paintings, I had in mind the idea to look and trace how artists react to their environment, either how they depict it or how they criticize it, or, you know, and that's how we find different, that's how changes in art occur. There is also, so that's one part, looking at their environment where they live, and also looking at art forms that came before. And I guess as an individual artist, people want to express themselves in a different way. So that's how we come up with all these isms: Impressionism, Post-Impressionism, Surrealism, and so on. So I'm going to do a little bit of tracing. But to give it some historical context, I'm going to share my PowerPoint now with you. Share screen. And the screen and share. I'm sorry, I'm hearing the wrong, or I hope you're not.
We are not.
Okay, good. So, and I'm going to go to slide mode, so you'll see a full picture. Where is slide mode?
Right where it's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from the beginning. And now, so you see everything bigger, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So I am starting with the, and we'll start with American, and then we'll move to Europe. So as you see, the title says The Gilded Age, which very specifically was from 1876 to 1912. And as the author of this book, where I took the cover from, his name is Alan Axelrod, says that this was the overture, the opening to what became the American century in history. So as the name says, gilded, you think of gold, of wealth, of richness. And yes, it was that, but I'm sure, as you know, it was also much more, the opposite end of the spectrum. So here you have a photo of Mark Twain, which should be very familiar to you, and I could not resist but share with you his quote. There was this, at this era, a lot of people from Europe, a lot of immigrants rushed to the United States because it was, as my father-in-law used to talk about, that he heard the golden Medina, the golden land that you can become rich quickly. So there was a lot of focus of accumulating wealth. And I liked what Mark Twain, with his very special humor, said, what is the chief end of man? To get rich. In what way? And he says, dishonestly, if you can. Honestly, if you must. I thought this was just precious. Anyway, so as I said, I'm going to move now to the next slide. And you have a beautiful view of Fifth Avenue in New York at that period of time. And just by looking at it at Central Park, Fifth Avenue, you're looking at those mansions and those buildings. It speaks of power, of wealth. And yes, that was that era. And this was an era of United States where there was rapid economic growth and also inventions. So things were moving fast, and it was kind of hard to keep up, but those who could did well. So you, I'm sure, are familiar with the terms, the tycoons or the robber barons like Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, Ford. These people put their stamp on this era, accumulating a lot of wealth. And I'm going through this because you'll see the artists that came a little bit later reacted to this. So that's why I'm spending time on this. Now, here you have a beautiful mansion in Rhode Island, the Breakers. And most of these big accumulation of wealth took place in the northern United States and northeast United States. Now, while this was happening and people enjoying this kind of life, there was another side of the United States. And here you have Mulberry Street in New York in the 1900s. What a contrast, just from those mentions to this. And as the American wages grew much higher than those in Europe, especially for skilled professionals, and there was an influx of millions of European immigrants, and therefore the Gilded Age, while on one hand was really gilded, it also was an era of abject poverty, and millions of immigrants were impoverished, concentrated in small areas of living. And the contrast between the two, and it kind of echoes what we're hearing today, not getting into politics, but the contrast between the two became even more visible. So here you have a photo, a picture of that era, and here is a painting. I love this painting. We don't have this painting at the museum, but we are going to look at another work of the same artist, and this was done by George Bellows, and he depicted the same area in the Lower East Side. So it's interesting if you look at the numbers, statistics, the population of the United States doubled every decade from 1800 to 1880. Can you imagine those massive numbers? And therefore, buildings that were once for one family were divided and subdivided for multi-purpose living, and often they were cramped, poorly lit, lacking indoor plumbing, proper ventilation. Fires were often occurring. There was one big fire that caused to change in laws and so on. So this is by George Bellows. And this painting he called the Cliff Dwellers. When I first saw it, I thought, cliff, I am looking for some mountains. But I guess what he wants to say, that these people lived very precariously, as if they are on the cliff, that they can any moment fall off. I think it's a great painting. So this is by George Bellows. And also, before I move on to the paintings themselves, enough history. By the 1900s, 2.3 million people, which was two-thirds of all of the population of New York, were living in those tenement housing.
Wow.
Amazing. Okay. Now,
Judy, do we have in the Cleveland Museum of Art, do we have some George Bellows?
Yes,
paintings?
we're going to look at it. That's why I picked him.
Okay.
Yes, we have. That will be actually one of the paintings we'll look at. So you'll see throughout my presentation, I will, to give the background, look at other artworks or specific like Van Gogh and so on that we do not have, just to explain his work. And then we will see what we have at the museum.
Okay.
So this time, the prevailing art style in the United States was Impressionism, which, by the way, the Impressionists hated that name, but it stuck. And as you see, very genteel, depicting the upper class, as we saw in those gilded palaces and mansions. And here is another similar painting. This is done by, this painting is by, I have to look at his name, I keep forgetting here, William Mary Chase. We have paintings of Chase at the museum, but not this one. So they would depict the life of the leisure society. This is called a friendly call. So you see two women visiting. Now, it looks like it's not clear, but that's how we painted it. So, and one more to show you what people were depicting in the Impressionist style. And here is this one. And this is Holiday on the Hudson. This is by Benjamin Lucas. This we have at the museum. This one we have. And again, you see the ladies with the umbrellas and the gentlemen going or for a boat ride and so on. Now, while the Impressionists held sway over the art scene, about the same time, a very loosely organized group of artists, they shared pretty much similar ideas and subject matters that they painted, not necessarily their style. And they became known as the Ashcan School. So like the word said, Ashcan, that was the school. And this group included artists who was actually the founder of it, Robert Henry. We have some of his paintings in the museum. John Sloan, those who were with, when we went actually to the museum, looked at the painting of a woman at work. So that was John Sloan and George Bellows. By the way, John Sloan and George Bellows were also reporters for newspapers. And they came in touch with the reality around them, the urban reality of the gritty, dirty environment that they saw around them. And they thought, they believed in the worthiness of the immigrant and working class life as artistic subject matter. So they switched the topics of their paintings from these genteel women, this ideal look, elitist, to what is real, what you see now. So how they painted may vary, but some would be realism, very realistic, others not. But the change was the theme that they picked. So this movement has been seen as the representative of the spirit of the political rebellion that was taking place at the time. So, going to our painter that we have, before that, this painting, you see how different this is from the subject matter, from those lovely ladies with the umbrellas and all that. Here you have working class, Black people, children working in mines. You see his face is smudged with the coal. He happens to look pretty good, I thought. But there are many paintings that depict this experience. Now,
He's beautiful.
Oh, I think the child, let's go back. I think he is, take a look at him. I guess that's why I picked him. Look at those blue eyes, the nose, just perfect. But these children were working in the coal mines. We just talked yesterday in our cousin's book club about this experience of children working, getting hurt, and so on. And because I think both Bellows and they were reporters, so they saw it and they picked it through their art. If I'm going too fast, Marcy, you tell me if people.
Okay, no, you're doing great.
Okay, now this brings me to George Bellows, who painted the cliffhangers. So George Bellows was raised in Columbus, Ohio. He attended Ohio State University, where he played baseball and basketball. Now I'm pointing it out because he became very well known for his sports scenes that he depicted. But not only. I picked at the bottom under his face here, you see fishermen at work. So again, working class, we don't have this painting. And he lived from 1882 to 1925. Let's me move to the next. And this is the one we have at the museum. So this painting is titled Stag at Sharkey's, and it was painted in 1909. It is oil on canvas. It's rather large. It is 36.5 inches by 48.5. So it's not a small painting. When you come to the museum, they have this running on the loop kind of paintings, which they call must see at the CMA. And this is one of them. So I'm sure if I would do it interactively, you would have told me, I'm sure right away, that you notice the play of light and dark. and your eye probably goes straight to those two boxers. I wasn't sure if they're wrestlers or boxers, but they were boxers. And you see the referee, and it's like very typical uh, arrangement of a painting, which the two boxers form this way and that way, a triangle, and that gives like this steady form. The painting is considered realistic because we will look at it later again. You could see their muscles and everything. And take a look down here. If you really look carefully in the darkness, there are very, I moved to my next one. I didn't want to go there yet. Or maybe I'll leave it. That's okay. You see it even more closely. Now, that play of dark and light was very popular with Rembrandt and other painters from the Dutch school of painting. And it has an Italian name, which I hope I'm not butchering it. And it's called chiaroscuro. So it's dark and light. And in this painting, Bellows himself, as I mentioned before, he was into sports and he depicted lots of sports. But this stag at Sharkey's took place at an athletic club, and which was like a social club. But in the back room, they arranged boxing matches. Now, at that time, the boxing matches were illegal in New York. So only members of the club could go back and wrestle. But you know that, or box, sorry, I'm wrong. But you know, people fight way around it. So the owners of these clubs would invite boxers who wanted to box, and they made them members for a day. So now they were members, so they could go back and box, and people betted on it, used money, and that's why they were called like the stag. They were the stag. Let me see what, now, I will have a little bit, the curator talk about it, so I'll move a little bit faster. Here is again George Bellows, and you see similar idea, but look now at the two boxers. Again, depicting working people from different ethnic groups, race, and you have that too. This one is called both members of the club. And remember, these are temporary members, so they could do the boxing. Now, many people, as we say, poo-poo this kind of painting. They said it's low class, it's, you know, not for us. And interestingly, President Theodore Roosevelt liked it a lot. And he felt that this shows the healthy for him, and you know, he was a man who hunted and so on. So for him, he regarded it as a healthy manifestation of manliness. And it also thought that it depicts the American spirit of, you know, the survival of the fittest, and you go and go-getting and so on. And slowly, even the upper, more genteel class started watching these, appreciating these paintings. So I think next I have a video of the curator, and let's hear what he has to say about this.
What I find particularly appealing about this painting is
Can
the
you hear?
notion that you are there. We are
Yes.
part of the audience looking up at the action. There's a sense of immediacy.
No, it's breaking up now.
Dynamic brushwork in the painting. The two fighters are worshiping one another and punching one another. It's almost like a speed blur of flesh. It looks painted very spontaneously, and you often just apply paint directly to the canvas, wet on wet, and then blended it together. And I think you see that quite clearly in the figures of the two fighters in the painting. One can see that it's very carefully composed.
It's going in and out. It's fading in and out.
I don't know what I can do.
Counterpoise with the
Okay.
referee on the right with his outstretched arms, and the entire canvas or the entire composition approximates a triangle. Another aspect of the composition is dressed in a white shirt at the lower left, where he's pointing into the action while turning his head around in order to look back at us. It's almost as if he's drawing us into the action.
All right, so you kind of repeated the same thing. He gave a little bit more detail, and he pointed out, if you didn't hear, that figure in the forefront that looks back and points, because if you heard it, and it makes you feel like you are in the painting.
We only see a black screen right now.
Yes, yes, this is the video. I'm moving on.
Okay.
So, just give me a minute. This was on this side of the pond, as they say. We're jumping now to Europe. And remember, this was in America.
We're still only
Yes,
seeing.
yes,
Okay.
I know. It will be
Okay.
in a second.
Anna, do you have your hand up for a reason? Shake it yes if you have a question.
Yeah, number one, I've seen this picture many times, but I never saw like the blood and the colors of the two fighters and the strength of the muscle until you really, so I looked and you're explaining it, but the blood on the face, and
yes.
people have read and just is amazing. And I'm sorry, I apologize for breaking in, but I left a chat and I can't get it sent to you, Marcy. I don't know what else I should do, so that's why I broke in.
Well, have you typed in what you wanted to say?
Right.
And then press the enter key.
Okay, can we move on? Thank you, Hannah. So I'm still on the black screen. So the Ashcan artists reacted to the Impressionism style in the United States. We are moving now to Europe.
What I find particularly appealing about.
And you all know who that is, right? Self-image of Van Gogh. Now, Van Gogh also reacted with Gauguin and others. They were a reaction to the Impressionism like Manet and Monet and those in Europe. And these are very simply called Post-Impressionism. And as you see, the style is very different. Now, they too did not have similar styles, like Gauguin paints very differently than Van Gogh, but the subjects that they pick, who they paint, and so on, and then what they all have in common is very vivid colors, and you look at the brush strokes, very quick, small strokes like that. So Vincent Willem van Gogh was born in 1853 and died in 1890. He was 37 years old when he died, very young. And he made an immense impression on and influence on the history of Western art, as we all know. Now, this is interesting. In just over a decade, 10 years, he created over 2,100 artworks. And of them, it includes about 860 oil paintings, and most of which date to the last 2 years of his life. So, let me see anything else. Yeah, Van Gogh, here is another picture of him. So Van Gogh as a child was a very serious child, quiet, thoughtful. As a young man, he tried to work as an art dealer and had to often travel. And one time he traveled to London, and that was too much for him. And so he left that. He was kind of seeking to find himself, express himself. And his father pushed him that direction. So for a while, he turned to religion and actually spent some time as a Protestant missionary in South Belgium. Only later did he get into his full occupation being painting. Now, this is obviously, you see the ear, the very famous, supposed to be his left ear. And we know that throughout his life, Van Gogh suffered from psychotic episodes, delusions, and although he was mentally not stable, he also often neglected his health. So he was skinny, run down, and he didn't eat properly, and he drank a lot. So after a lot of traveling, he ended up in Paris, where he met with some other group of like-minded artists who did not think that the Impressionist obsession with painting the same, let's say, water lilies at different time of the day in different lights, that's how they wanted to go. So like I said, among them was Gauguin. And at some point, Van Gogh, together with Gauguin, went to the south of France, and they claimed that the light there is wonderful. I've not been there, and I'm not an artist, so I can just take their word. And they rented a house, which both of them painted. It's called the Yellow House. I didn't include them. A lot of painting. I actually saw an exhibition in Chicago, which the Art Museum there did a fantastic thing. They had both Gauguin and Van Gogh painting a chair in the house or painting a room, and they put like a strip going one on top of the other, and then you very clearly saw the different styles. But that Van Gogh's idea was to create a colony of artists. That did not happen. His mental situation deteriorated. He got into a fight with Gauguin, and he ended up cutting off his ear, as we know, and presented it to one of the prostitutes that they were in that bar that they used to go. Now, it's important to note that Van Gogh never painted. When he painted, he was fluid. He never was in one of those depression or strange moods he has. He was focused and concentrated on the work at hand. Now, this is a very important person in Van Gogh's life. And if you read about Van Gogh, you might have heard his name. This is his younger brother, Theo Van Gogh. And you see the resemblance between, they resemble each other. Theo Van Gogh was an art dealer, and he supported Van Gogh all his life. If you are interested in learning more and in a fun way about Van Gogh, you can borrow from the library. You can take out on the collection online, there is a short film animated called The Man in the Yellow Coat. And I'm going to have that man in the yellow coat in a minute. And it traces all what I'm going to show you pretty soon. So Theo supported Van Gogh to the extent that he actually, to the detriment of his family, he sent Van Gogh so much money that his wife was complaining, I cannot feed the kids. Yet he supported his brother. Here, you see these paintings? I'm going to ask you, or nod your hand, or Marcy, or whatever. Who do you think this is? Van Gogh or his brother? Well, let me put it this way. If you cannot make up your mind, until 2011, art critics were sure that this is another painting of Van Gogh, a self-portrait of Van Gogh. I am not quite sure how they came to the conclusion that it is not, and it's actually his brother, Theo. Now, they resemble each other, no question. The red hair, the beard, the features. And it was interesting that Van Gogh had his habit was to paint the same thing many different times, different shades of colors, and self-portraits galore. And there was nothing of his brother. And his brother was very, very influential in his life. And you can find books that include the correspondence between Van Gogh and his brother, and so on. But they think now that almost sure that this is Theo and not Van Gogh. Now, I mentioned that Van Gogh went to the south of France, and when he was there, first he rented that yellow house, but later on he moved to a room, he couldn't afford it, and he was in a very precarious mental and physical state. And yet he continued painting. So I'm not sure why, but he became a patient of a Dr. Cachet. And forgive me those who speak French, I don't. I tried to get the pronunciation. The best I got was Gachette.
Judy,
And-
we have a question.
Yes,
Did Van Gogh dress up like Theo?
I cannot answer that. I don't think so. Probably not. Because if I had to guess, I would say no. Because he was very disheveled. And Theo was an art dealer at the beginning, successful, later on not so. So he dressed appropriately to, you know, deal with the upper class who would buy the paintings and so on. So I would say no, but I would have to, you know, research it, not sure.
Okay.
Anyway, this doctor was actually a homeopathic doctor, not a psychologist or anything like that. And he himself was he thought he was an artist. And there are many paintings by Dr. Cachette himself. And there is seem to think that he was jealous of Van Gogh. Because as he treated him, he saw that Van Gogh was the real talent and he wasn't as successful in bringing to the canvas what he wanted to do. So as I told you before, here is another painting of the same doctor, but now you see it's a little bit different. The same, leaning on his hand. Here's a flower here. The sky, if you look at, let me go back, or maybe not. It's different, yet it's the same person. And in May of 1990, the first version that I showed you, not this one, was sold in auction for $82.5 million,
Wow.
which would correspond today to 181.4 million.
We have another question from
Yes.
Edith. In
Yes.
the first photo of Theo,
Yes,
didn't he have a black beard and mustache?
he was
The
young.
painting- The painting is a redhead like Vincent.
That is a good observation. And that's why for a long time they thought it was Van Gogh. But then how they determined that he's not, I don't know. Maybe you could see, and I'm now really projecting, but excellent observation. I think it's the blending of the two of them because they were so intertwined, so close. So redhead was Van Gogh for sure. I think, let's go back to that. No, he was black beard and black hair. Could it be because it was only black and white?
That's what I thought.
Could
Because
be,
the first one was black and white and there wasn't any color in the painting.
right. And that wasn't a painting, that was a photograph, black and white. So I would tend to believe that they were both redhead. Anyway, I thought this was kind of interesting. Now, he painted, you see again, two different versions of a postmaster. I suppose that's postmaster in French. Now, when he lived in that house, in one room, in the house of Arthur Gustave Revaux, and actually it was almost like a shed where he lived, not really fit for human living. But I'm mentioning it because one of the paintings that we have at the museum is the daughter of Arthur Gustave Revaux, and the curator will explain about her. But he painted this postmaster a lot, and the postmaster really would be the one who sorted the letters, and then they would go by carrier to Paris, and this way Van Gogh knew him well because, as I told you, there was a correspondence between two brothers. So he played a major role. And sometimes his son, this one, and it's the portrait of Armand Rouleau, the son of the postmaster. And this character, if you go to the movie, that film, animated one that I suggested, he is a detective in there. It's really an amazing film if you're interested. Now, let's move on. He was very prolific. He did many portraits, but then he did landscape. And this is one of, for me, I was not familiar with this one. I was familiar with others, like this one, I'm sure almost everyone knows, the Starry Night. You see the brushstroke, the powerful, round color. I think it reflects an inner formal. And Van Gogh was famous for saying, I don't want to paint, I'm not painting the person, how he looks, but his inner life, whether the subject or the painter, how sees things. So this kind of reflects, I think, his state of mind. He also is very famous for his irises and the sunflowers and plain still life. Now we're going to what we do have at the museum, and I'm going to focus on this painting. And he started this painting at this point when he painted this. This was toward the end of his life, actually. If I'm not mistaken, this was the last painting he made. We do have it at the museum. And he at that time voluntarily committed himself to an asylum for the mentally ill. But when he felt better, he was allowed to go out and paint. So this painting he started outside, but finished indoors. And the curator will explain, you see, these figures here are kind of not finished. These are finished. Here are some bricklayers laying a brick road. Anyway, I think the next thing I have is, I did that. I think what I have next might be the video. All right, so hopefully you can hear, because the curator will do better job than I in explaining. So here we go. Oh, what happened? Okay.
Painting peasants. He came to Paris in 1866 and discovered Impressionism and was heavily influenced by the brushwork of the Impressionists. By the time he arrived in France, he had won
Yeah, the sound isn't good.
expressing emotion.
Why isn't it good?
So
It should
we
be.
often
That's how he
call Vincent
speaks, in and out.
See in this painting that the colors vibrating forms go beyond the photographic realism that one would expect with conventional art into an entire new realm. And he's discovering, pushing toward greater emotion, influential for 20th century. Vincent had seen this scene while taking a walk from the asylum where he had voluntarily interned himself. He, of course, knows that he had mental issues.
It's not so good, Judy. We can't really hear anything.
No?
No.
Okay, when I stopped. Okay, so I'm sorry, because I hear very clearly, so I don't know why it doesn't share well. Anyway, let's move to the next painting. And you saw the curator was standing next to the painting that we have at the museum. This is the other one. And this is the daughter of the person from whom he rented the room. Her name is Adeline Revaux, and she was 12 years old. Now, in this painting, this girl does not look 12 to me.
Oh.
But as I said, Vincent, I'm calling him like he's my friend. Van Gogh, excuse me, not my friend. So he wanted to bring to the canvas the inner life of the person. And to me, and if anybody wants to chime in through the chat, to me, she looks very contemplative, not happy. The girl doesn't look happy to me. Their mouth is turned down. Anybody wants to comment on how she looks? Let Marcy know. No? Nobody.
I don't see anybody, yeah.
Okay.
Judy, I can't get into my chat.
Okay, well, go ahead. You're talking now. You're unmuted, so go
So
ahead.
you can say.
Okay.
What
Well,
did you want?
I'm just saying, generally, I can't get into my chat. I don't want to interrupt.
Okay,
But
but Hannah, you are unmuted.
Go ahead,
I think.
Hannah.
Go ahead. Hannah.
Yes. All I'm saying is I don't necessarily want to say something about this, but I thought during the break, I cannot get into my chat.
But
Okay,
that's
well, we
forget
don't want
it.
to talk about
Forget
that.
it.
Do you have a comment?
No, I like the picture, and she does, and you're right. You're doing a wonderful job here. Not necessarily about this picture as such. It's just in general that I can't get into my chat to give.
Don't worry about it. I'm going to suggest, Marcy, how about, since we are a small group today, people, when they want to say, let them unmute themselves.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, because we're not large. In the past, we were much larger groups, and then
Okay.
it didn't work.
Okay.
Okay, so he painted her. This is a 25, almost 26 inches by 36, pretty nice size. And she always attracts my eye when I go. Her painting is right next to the plane trees that we saw before. So the painting, where are we here? Yeah, let's move on. Let's see if you can hear now, because if not, it's a shame. He does such a good job explaining.
Van Gogh painted this devil during
I don't hear it. Does anyone else hear
Nobody
it?
hears it?
Yes, it
Okay.
helps. It helps if you turn the sound on your computer up higher.
after working.
Mine, you mean? Mine is high.
No. Our individual computers. Like when I put my sound up higher, then I could hear better.
She was 16 years old at the time.
Oh, 16. I'm sorry. She started at
3
12.
portraits of her, but only one from life.
I can't turn it up higher.
Okay.
Picture. Painting in which you see her from the legs up, sitting in a chair in profile. And
No.
gave one of those.
Yeah, it goes in and out.
This picture, which is somewhat different in several respects.
It's
She
almost
is
done.
turned slightly in her body and head. She's sitting in a very dark background, and her face is lit up with absolutely brilliant color. These are not naturalistic colors. They're meant to heighten the emotions of the scene. Vincent has also added something that's not found in the portrait done from life, and that's the white flowers that you see in the lower right. These are certainly meant to have some type of symbolism, and they suggest to us that this is not really a portrait of a woman or something done from life, but it's a symbolic image. Partly this is memory and imagination speaking. It's the artist seeking for something that's greater than what we experience in the everyday world.
Okay. So you saw that he painted her, if you didn't hear, different times. One was more realistic, one was from memory. And again, the inner life that he wanted to paint. Moving right
Van Gogh
along.
painted this
Oh,
view.
no. And this is someone you should look, moving to a different style. Now, Van Gogh was a reaction to Impressionism. So his group was called the Post-Impressionist. Picasso, you could in a way, and his contemporaries, view as reaction to the Post-Impressionist, taking it a step further. So as you see, Picasso is a Spanish painter born in 1881 in Spain and died in France in 1973. Picasso is such a large subject that I think I'm just giving a few highlights because he lived a fascinating life, many wives, different styles of paintings, and so on. But he's mostly known for Cubism. And Cubism was a revolutionary new approach to representing reality invented around 1907, 1908 by two artists. We all know Picasso, but actually he met in this bar they used to meet with another painter by the name of George Braque. And the two paintings in our museum, we have the Picasso and George Braque next to each other, not coincidentally, and they found that they're doing the same things. He also was one of the first Cubists. So in this painting, Pablo Picasso was most dominant, influential artist of the 20th century, and he is associated obviously mostly with pioneering Cubism along with Braque, and he also invented collage and made major contribution to symbolism and surrealism. And the next after Picasso, I think I'll do the Salvador Dali, the surrealist, and I think if you have patience, I have one more. If not, we'll stop with that. So in this painting, as you see here, he depicts himself, and by looking at these pictures, you could see how his styles evolve. When he paints himself as a 15-year-old, it's pretty conventional painting. He knew how to paint. It's not like he did not know. He could have, we have a painting in the museum that he drew a woman with a hat, and it is just so realistic, so beautiful. But it was his choice to move away from it. So here he is 15 years old. The middle already leans more toward the exaggerated look. And at the end, you have the full blown out cubism when he was 89 years old. Now, what the Cubists tried to do, and I have to tell you, I did not relate to these paintings. I don't know about you. It took a lot for me to appreciate them. I guess I didn't understand them. So one explanation I heard was, you know, imagine you have a jar on a table and on a tablecloth, and you pull the tablecloth and the jar falls and breaks into many pieces. And now what they are doing in their painting, they're putting those different views, the one on the left and the triangle and the square and the one on the right of the glass pieces at the same time on the flat screen. I don't know if it helps you to grasp Cubism. It helped me. Let's move on. This is a painting that I'm sure our museum wishes we had. Anybody knows this painting? What it is? Okay, so this painting is called Guernica. Say it again.
Guernica.
Correct. Guernica.
At the Prado.
That's correct. It's in Spain. I don't think it moved from the Prado. I looked at it. I thought it would be the Prado, and it wasn't recently, but who knows?
Oh.
I thought the Prado, but what I looked, it didn't say so. So Guernica was painted in its full-blown Cubism. It was painted in 1939. So it tells you it's just before World War II. And historians call what happened there as a trial run for the atrocities and things that happened in World War II. This was during the Civil War in Spain. And with Franco, associated with the fascists and the nationalists, and the nationalists came into this village called Guernica, and they took it over. And it had such an impact on Picasso, especially because it was actually January 1939, and it was just after the death of his mother, and it also was after the fall of Barcelona, his favorite city, that the fascists took over. So you know he was in a very depressed mood. And this is huge. This painting is 26 feet by 36. I mean, tall. Look at the images of the people next to it. And if you look carefully, you see the anguish on the face of the characters. There are 6 people depicted here. I looked, I found them. And then there are 3 animals. And there is actually 1 plant also. And you see like this figure down here, the mother with the outstretched hand, and over here. It's a very powerful painting. Moving on to what we have at the museum. And this is called simply bull skull, fruit, and pitcher. Now, and in the center, you see like a tree. You see this white, within like in a white haze. This painting also had to do, he painted after Guernica was destroyed. They tried out new bombs there and new airplanes that later on were used. You know, we had American volunteers on the side of the nationalists, and the fascists had from Italy coming and help. So it was a mess. So Guernica had the village, had in the center of the village a tree, not a particular tree, but it was very resilient tree. No matter what happened, the tree was there. And during this bombing of Guernica, the tree was badly damaged. Now, the skull of the bull represents Spain, obviously, but it is a skull, so it represents decay, death, and picture, I am not sure, maybe water to give life again. And the tree of Guernica is the symbol of hope. That the tree, no matter what, bombing, no bombing, the tree is there. And interestingly, in 2011, and I don't know how it happened, but I found an ad in the newspaper saying authorities in the Spanish city of Guernica are mourning the death of a 146-year-old oak tree. And this tree is the symbol of the Basque nationalist pride. And what it shows, the tree which stands in front of the local council building survived the infamous 1937 bombing during the Civil War and so on. They replanted the tree. So if you look up Guernica, you will find this.
Edith just wrote that there's a correction. Guernica is in the Reina Sofia Museum in Madrid.
Correct. Not a Prado, like
Right.
I thought, and then I said it wasn't. Thank you, Edith.
And it's really interesting that the bull or whatever the animal is, that the eyes make it look like you're looking straight on, but the mouth and the jaw are from the side view.
You are excellent observation, and that's what they were doing, juxtaposing different viewpoints on the same skin. So the eyes are looking forward, but the mouth is looking this way. And it is, he called it the bull skull, because a bull is the, bullfights and all that, that's Spain. I hope you get a little, maybe you like cubism, I particularly didn't, but I learned to appreciate it more. Moving along, very interesting character. You know who this is, Salvador. I used to say Dali. Then I heard they said Dali. So take your pick, whichever you like. Now, this was a self-promoter. I listened to some lectures about Dali. The man was amazing. He made money of everything. And he was innovative and interesting. But he knew how to promote himself before those, icons hired people to promote them. So where am I? Where is Dali? Salvador Dali was born in 1904 in Spain, in Catalonia, and he is a renowned surrealist. Now the word surrealism, and I'm sure are aware of this, in literature and otherwise, you have the word realism in it, but it's surrealism. The laws of nature don't apply. They surpass the laws of nature. So he's known as the Spanish surrealist artist, but he is renowned for his technical skill. He knew how to paint, not just these paintings like that, if you are familiar with that watch that kind of is on the beach and melts or whatever, or the head of one way you look at it, you see a head of a lion, then it is a dune on the seashore. I mean, that's him. But he had excellent technical skill. He had precise draftsmanship and striking and bizarre images. This is what he's known for. He was born in Catalonia and he received his formal education in Madrid. He traveled around the world. He was famous everywhere. He was in the United States in his travels, but he died in 1989, and he died back in Spain, in Catalonia, where he was born. That's where he is buried. Okay, now we'll go to the painting, and prepare yourself, because some people find it disturbing. This painting. Just take a look at this. Take a moment and look at this. So, without knowing anything, look at the figure. Any reaction? What do you think the figure is doing? What catches your eye? Anybody?
Her hair,
Yes.
her
The
hair,
hair.
being
The
blown.
hair. The
And
hair
the
is, and the mouth. The
being
mouth has like stuff on it. The hair. Look at the eyes. Open,
Closed
shut.
eyes. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Closed eyes.
Closed eyes shut, but look, they're kind of like bulging as if the figure wants to open them but cannot. And this painting is called The Dream. And at that time, this was painted in the same year, I have to find it, the same year that Freud died, Sigmund Freud. Now, Sigmund Freud, we know him as a psychoanalyst and all that, but his theories had tremendous influence in literature and visual arts. And Dali was very influenced by that. So he went, while Van Gogh wanted to paint the inner life of a person, Dali and the Surrealists wanted to free themselves even from that, free themselves from the conscious and go to the subconscious, to the dream world. And that in a way also reflected their approach, especially Salvador Dali, not to give in to the norms of society and break them and live differently, the way you want to see it. So let's look the next picture. I focused here on this. And you see the eyes, how they're bulging, as if the person is in a deep dream, but wants to wake up and cannot. The hair suggests to me that maybe it's not a pleasant dream. Maybe it's, it's moving around, touching the hair, and it's kind of flying. These supposed to be, if you look even closer, ants. Very disturbing, very disturbing. Ants are for him symbol of decay and death for Dali. So he had many other things where he had ants in them. I said that he was influenced by Freud. Let's move to the other side of the painting. Here, you see this figure with the red eyes and all that? That represents Freud. And here, sitting, I didn't do a good job with this. Let me go back for a minute to the full painting so you could see it. Nope, doesn't do it. I guess we did not. Oh yeah, you see it here. Look, you see on here, I'm pointing, that's a figure seated. It's like blood on his hands. Here is like a looking antique, like Roman Greek figure, and that represents Freud. And this figure, and let me go now back to where we were. This figure, actually, Freud is known for defining the Oedipus complex, that Oedipus who ended up killing his father and marrying his mother, an obsession with suppressed sexuality and so on. So this is supposed to be Oedipus. And let's go to the next one. Here is a column from antiquity, a nod to Oedipus and the Greek tragedies. And you see this figure here has a key in his hand, and this should be the key to the subconscious that Freud helps you uncover. Now, this figure here is very interesting. Here is like a firmament, like a background, but it must be not solid, because if you look carefully, you see that this hand almost goes through it. So again, Surrealism, not paying attention, surpassing laws of nature. Now, I think with this, I don't know, I have one more, but if this is enough, please tell me. I also have an American painter, a Black American painter, very different style. Did we have enough?
No, please go on.
Go on.
Thank you. Then I'll do one more.
A couple of people, I just want to pop this in. A couple of people have mentioned the Dali Museum in Florida.
Yes, and
And
it's
that-
good fun.
There used to be some in Beechwood, some Dali art in Beechwood. I'm not sure.
It's the same museum that moved to Florida.
Got it.
Oh, probably with the people who migrated to Florida.
Can I go back? Can I go
Yes.
back?
It's a
About
benefactor.
our first, about Van Gogh. There was a play that they had here in Cleveland, a one-man show with a brother reading from the letters that Van Gogh sent him. They're reading letters about that they both sent to each other. And I meant to
Yes.
say it, try to write it down so I wouldn't have
Yeah.
to interrupt. It was an interesting play. It wasn't here for long, but an interesting play. I don't know if it's still going, but it's something to look into, how the relationship of the brothers. So anyway.
Very famous relationship, and it possible, if not for Theo, we would not have Van Gogh, because he actually supported him. Okay, moving to the next one. Now, this is totally different style, as you can see. And this is a painting by Jacob Lawrence, who he was born in Atlantic City. He was born in 1917. He died in 2002. He was very influential painter about this immigrant wave of people. You know, we did in the Gilded Era, how immigration changed the face of art when artists chose to depict it. This is a more contemporary, so I thought I'll begin with that and end with that. And at the time when he painted this, he lived near an intersection in New York of Fulton and Nostrand Avenue. Fulton Road was now changed to Harriet Tubman Street in Brooklyn. And this scene captures the dynamic life that he saw from his window. So he uses bold colors, jagged shapes to represent the people rushing around in a busy evening in the neighborhood. I have a wonderful explanation by the curator, but I think you're telling me you cannot hear, so I'll try and look at it also. Try and explain. You see a mix of people. Here is a person dressed on the left to go out, right? In the middle is a person in overalls, probably coming back from work. Here is another person all dressed up and a lady with a nice dress going out. So another figure headed this way has a canary or a bird in a cage. And what Jacob Lawrence did very nicely, by use of color, he directs your eye where to look. And I think we kind of doing it, even not realizing. Start with this on the left, you see a shop here, or a cafe or something, and there's this woman dressed in red. Now follow the red color, and you go, what is happening? Well, what happened?
Go back up one slide.
Yeah, but my slide disappeared. Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see my screen view, or do you see?
We see everything, but it's okay. Keep
No,
going.
let me go to this
Okay.
and go from current slide, and now you
Yes.
see it there.
Yes.
Okay, so follow the red color. So it directs your eye from there to this girl with this very vivid red hair. So your eye goes this way. Then the red, notice after her, I talked about the man carrying, I guess it's a cage. But why? Because it caught my eye, the red color. The girl also has red flower. And from here, my eye moved right across to this girl dressed in red. And then my eye moved up to the woman with the red hat. And so and then I went full circle over here again with the red color. There is something interesting here. Where is that? Why am I not seeing it? Ooh, where is it? It should be here. The man in the tailor shop. Let me go to a different view.
You can see him over on the right. He's measuring somebody.
Yes, I'm not seeing it. Oh, because I have the pictures of you on it.
Yeah, just move
Right.
it out of the
See
way and
here?
you'll see it.
Yeah, there. You see that? So there is a person, and all the figures are black people, no white people in the picture. However, the only white character is here, and this is a tailor shop, and he's helping the person try on a suit or something. So, oh, here is again red, which I didn't see before because I had you on that screen. So that art critic said this was his social commentary of the situation that businesses were owned by white people in black communities. Anyway, since we cannot hear the curator, I think I'll stop here